Australia often comes to mind as a paradise on Earth. Stunning beaches, iconic landmarks, and a laid-back culture make it a dream destination for many. But while the surface is beautiful, living in Australia has become a nightmare for many, thanks to a crushing housing crisis, skyrocketing living costs, and stagnant wages.
Australia is in the grips of a well-documented housing crisis as home prices continue to climb with demand still outstripping supply. The latest data from property consultancy CoreLogic showing the imbalance driving prices higher across capital cities.
Think of what it would be like to be an Australian. Australia has been dubbed one of the most beautiful nations in the world. The unfortunate truth, however, is that many Australians cannot afford even the basic of needs.
Increasing cost of the weekly grocery shop is forcing some to skip meals, impacting 44% of families, particularly in our southwest.
The land down under has officially gone into recession in per capita GDP 3 times in 4 decades as of 2023.
Australia is officially the worst on record, with the average property costing 8 times the median household income.
The consequences? Wages dropped to levels not seen since 2011. This is a country that has endured horrendous bushfires, the COVID pandemic, and countless lockdowns. Yet the biggest problem for the Australians is the high cost of living. Everywhere you turn, life is getting more expensive. Food, rent, and even travel, you name it, prices are rising.
If you're struggling to pay the bills, you're not alone. New research revealing the cost of living is hitting harder than ever before right across the state.
But nothing puts a dent in your wallet quite like rent. In the last several decades, Australia has had record levels of housing growth never seen before in history. To buy a house, you need to be rich and sad in equal measures. Since 1973, house prices in Australian capital cities have increased 36 times. Let that sink in. To buy a home in Melbourne today, a family would need to earn at least $170,000 per year. In Sydney, that number jumps to a jaw-dropping $260,000. The crazy part is, the average income in these two cities is close to $100,000. The sum doesn't even add up. It's easy to dismiss this as a big city problem, but unfortunately, it's not. It's not surprising considering that since 2020, house prices in cities such as Brisbane, Adelaide, or Perth saw an increase of more than 50%, while wages grew by a measly 12%. For the younger group of Australians, the situation becomes much worse. The rate of people under 34 years of age who own a home has decreased by almost 25%. Pretty much entire generations are getting shut out from the real estate game, stuck in a cycle of rent and wishing that one day they'll get to own a home. When people use the line, if you can't buy a home, then you can rent. Trust me, renting, as they say, is not any better. The median rent in Sydney is approaching the $3,000 per month mark, with Brisbane closely following at around $2,500. Open rental placing in Australia's major cities are like musical chairs, when a number of hopeful applicants literally have queues extending blocks long. And that's if you can even find a place. Rental applications in major cities almost seem like gladiator battles, with dozens, sometimes hundreds of people competing for a single unit. The demand for rental housing has reached absurd levels. For many, renting isn't about finding a dream home, it's about finding any place to live. People have started bidding for rents, paying in advance for months, as well as sharing rent with a number of people. The real kicker? People are paying these outrageous prices with wages that haven't budged in over a decade. It's like trying to win a marathon while wearing a ball and chain. Some cite increased immigration as the reason for increased housing demand, especially in the rental market. Australia was on the map for nearly 740,000 immigrants in the year of 2022 to 2023, and this was the first time such a number was witnessed. Most of these immigrants are on temporary visas and are in need of housing on rent, which fuels rivalry. Immigration spikes of up to 18% in durations as little as a year have been witnessed in some of the suburbs in Melbourne's southeast and other places of South Sydney, but pointing fingers towards immigrants as the root cause of the housing crisis is but a misrepresentation of the facts. This is primarily because the number of incoming immigrants have been on a decline for over a 10-year period. The main concern, however, remains undisguised, and that is the lagging construction of new homes to solve housing needs of the Australian population. One of the fundamental factors which contributes to the affordability crisis in Australia is the problem of housing supply. In addition, Australia is land-rich, but a country deficient in housing. In 2023, the number of new dwellings constructed across the nation was a measly 170,000, which is the least amount built in a decade, and this problem has been in existence for quite some time. Since the year of 2000, the accommodative policy in Australian housing has consistently been on a downward slide with respect to the population. Why? Well, a combination of factors. First, there's Australia's love for suburban sprawl. Cities such as Sydney and Melbourne turned out to be among the least densely populated major cities in the world. While London or Amsterdam go vertical and build up the population in a small area, Australian cities spread wide and far. Due to the love for standalone housing, which also means low density, such large-scale developments are more costly and take longer. But even when there's land to build on, bureaucracy gets in the way. Let's just say that construction in Australia is plagued with red tape. For instance, in NSW, a single home development application can take an abominable time of 111 days on average to obtain a thumbs up. In some areas such as Liverpool, that number jumps to 288 days. Compare that to Texas, where similar approvals take less than a week. The result? A housing supply bottleneck that drives up prices even further. If you're liking this video so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let me start by reiterating what I said earlier. The Australian tax system doesn't put a bandage to the wound, but rather adds fuel to the fire. Negative gearing, a policy brought to life in the 1930s, allows property investors to deduct losses incurred through rent in the personal income tax. It was structured in a way that it would foster investment in rental housing. In real terms, it has turned the property market to be a gambling floor for investors. Here's how it works. Imagine you earn $100,000 per year, but lose $10,000 on your rental property. Negative gearing lets you deduct that $10,000 from your taxable income, reducing your tax bill. Combine that with reduced capital gains taxes and the ability to hold real estate investments in tax-advantaged retirement accounts, and you have a recipe for rampant property speculation. These policies disproportionately benefit older Australians and wealthy investors, while locking younger and low-income Australians out of the market. It's no wonder taxpayers are footing an $8 billion bill every year to sustain these incentives. The obsession with real estate has also stunted Australia's economic growth. Why invest in innovation or new industries when property offers such easy returns? It's pretty clear that the returns on investment in the real estate market are far greater, hence there isn't any need to put the money in R&D. In fact, the amount of money that is spent is only 1.7% of the GDP, which is lower than the OECD average of 2.4%, and that too mainly consists of overseas funding. All these factors, including a reduction in wage bracket and the slowing GDP growth, also indicate the stagnant growth rate, all signs that the country is betting its resources on buying land rather than developing a sustainable economy. If you're thinking this sounds like a government problem, you're absolutely right. But it's not just one political party to blame for this crisis. It has taken decades of political inaction. Both Liberal and Labour parties employed the same trick of ignoring the root problems of the housing issue. From John Howard's era, which saw housing prices double, to the present day, the issue has only worsened. There needs to be major shifts in the Australian housing sector to turn this crisis around. Abolishing negative gearing would curb speculative investment in housing, making it easier for first-time buyers to enter the market. Encouraging densification by building up rather than out could help address supply shortages in major cities. Cutting red tape would streamline development approvals, allowing more homes to be built and easing the supply crunch. Lowering income taxes would reduce the tax burden on hardworking Australians, helping to offset rising living costs. Finally, reforming capital gains taxes is crucial as current policies disproportionately benefit investors, creating an uneven playing field for ordinary Australians. These changes could pave the way for a fairer, more accessible housing market. The question is, will Australians demand the change they desperately need? Let us know in the comments section below, and make sure to like the video. Thanks for watching.